Police say William Lewis Ullman was arrested this evening.
Pullins and the defendant were married for 7 years. They were in the process of breaking up. From January of this year until the incident date, there have been 5 different call-outs. February 23rd of 2025, he had strangled her. June 3rd, beat her up. Then going to the 4th of June and the 5th of June, Paul left a message on the phone saying, if your sister don't pull up or tell me where the she is, I am going to pull up and pop.
This literal piece of human excrement allegedly took his colostomy bag, his jealous rage, and his gun to his estranged wife's house in DeKalb, Georgia, broke in, and shot his wife and their 7-year-old niece. He was caught 5 hours later in hiding, and lodged in the DeKalb County Jail with no bond. That was the last time you'll see an image of that shitbag in this video. That happened about 1 month ago. Today we have this shitbag's bond redetermination hearing, where we hear the horrifying details of the terrifying hell he put his own family through on several occasions, culminating with the brutal murder of 2 beautiful people. I advise discretion while watching this video, certainly for anyone under the age of 18, but also for yourself. If you feel that it's too much for you, stop watching. I'll shut up now.
Nicole Finney for the state. Mr. Ullman has 3 different cases. The most serious one is the murder, obviously, position number 1. These are 3 different incidents throughout this year. And so if Your Honor will indulge me, I do have quite a bit of facts to go over. Among these 3 cases, there are approximately 10 victims in total. The murder encompasses 2 decedent victims, as well as 7 living victims. And then the prior incidents that also have other surviving victims as well, who are not involved with the murder. So the parties, the decedent victim, her name is Tamika. Ms. Pullins and the defendant were married for approximately 7 years. They were in the process of breaking up, ending their marriage. The defendant had become abusive. From January of this year until the incident date of the actual murder, there have been 5 different call-outs and incidents with these 2 parties. There are 3 on the calendar, but there were also additional cases. This is a domestic violence homicide case, Judge. So starting with position number 2, chronologically, Judge, this incident took place on February 23rd of 2025. This incident involved our decedent victim, then Tamika Pullins. She was called the police in reference to a strangulation call. She asserted that the defendant had come over. He had strangled her. He stole her purse. He went inside of her purse and looked at her phone, alleged that she was cheating somehow, became angry, assaulted her, pushed her in the bed, and strangled her. He fled the scene prior to his arrest. In this particular time, she did not lose consciousness, but she did have difficulty breathing. And her sister, Jasmine Pullins, who actually occurs in she's unfortunately a survivor and a witness to other instances as well. Ms. Pullins told the police officers that she did in fact see the strangulation and saw the defendant actually strangling her with her tongue out of her mouth. On this particular day, a warrant was filed, but he had not been arrested. Then, Your Honor, there is an intervening incident that's not on the calendar, but I should mention it to you. This is going to be a state court transfer. There is an incident that happens on June 3rd of 2025. It will be transferred up to the DA's office. I will be used for Burnett warrant and also proceeding with felony charges eventually at indictment. This incident take place on June 3rd, 2025, so it's closer in time to our actual murder. On this particular date, the police responded to the same incident location here in Decatur, in DeKalb County. On this particular incident date, Ms. Pullins called the police, and it's a very heartbreaking call. She says that the defendant had come to her house, had beat her up, and she said that's the same thing she's been calling for. She asked for the police to come out. She described the physical assault. She described that he brandished the firearm, and she described that he pulled the firearm out and pointed it. And also Jasmine, her sister again, said that she told him, she kind of begged him not to shoot her sister. Of course, he fled from the scene prior to the police's arrival. In this particular incident, she was given a case number, but no warrants were filed at that time. Then, Your Honor, this is where it's a series of escalating events. So that was the 3rd of June, then going to the 4th of June and the 5th of June. By this time, the defendant had been repeatedly harassing the victim and her family. He had taken her cell phone and she didn't have a phone. So by this point, she was using either Facebook, or he would have to call her sisters or her stepmother. So she has her sister, Jasmine Pullins, who's an older sister by a year, and her stepmother, her name is Nikita Bruce, and both of them on this call, Judge. The defendant began to harass her family. He was calling repeatedly. He was leaving messages, voicemail messages. It got so bad, they called the police out again. Police came to the scene. They did review those messages. They were threatening in nature. And if I will, Your Honor, around 12:30 that morning, he even called and left a message on the phone saying, if your sister don't pull up or tell me where the fuck she is, I am going to pull up and pop one of those kids in the head. He then texted, done sleeping hard. We will never know what happened to anybody and anywhere y'all stay. Now I'm going to ask you, Jazz, your sister's scared as hell to call me. She's going to tell me what shelter she's going to be in, or all y'all dying with me. I'm sorry for my profanity, Judge, but these are his words, not mine. Yes, Judge. So then around this time, Judge, the police did take out warrants for harassing phone calls for misdemeanors. And so that warrant, the misdemeanor, was also taken then. But the defendant, of course, was not on scene, so we didn't have any arrests. So this is a series of incidents where he was not yet arrested, but the police made attempts to come out to the scene and investigate. And then finally, Your Honor, leading up to the actual murder, which is position number 1 on the calendar. This murder, if I can just kind of set the stage, same instant location. They live on the very first level of this apartment. It's an apartment complex. And so they live on the first level. The actual front of the house faces the street, and there is glass window in the front. There's also windows on the side of the rooms as well. And in this particular house at this particular time, that being on June 13th of 2025, around 2 to 3 o'clock that day, you have a number of people in the house. You have our now decedent victim, Tamika Pullins. You have Dior Scott, the decedent child. She's 7 years old, a juvenile. You have Miss Dior Scott's mother. Her name is Nadja Freeman. She's on the call as well. You have an adult male named Marquise Honeycutt, a younger male. And then you have a number of other children. You have also Jasmine Pullins, excuse me. So you have essentially 4 adults, 3 of them women, 1 male, and then you have 5 children in the house. One of the children is now deceased and the other remain alive. I will not repeat their names here, but I will give the court their ages. In addition to that 7-year-old victim that I mentioned who was passed away, Miss Little Dior Scott, there's also a 14-year-old juvenile who was present, also a 6-year-old who was present, a 4-year-old who was present, and a 1-year-old who was present, a baby in diapers. The defendant began to again harass and intimidate them. He came over to the house yet again unannounced and uninvited. On this particular incident date, he came over. He began to antagonize the parties in the house. There's actually, because things had gotten so bad, Your Honor, in terms of the threat, the ongoing threat to the family. And I should mention that this particular house at this time had 2 different families living in it. It had 2 sisters, they had their children. You also had a friend, Miss Nadja Freeman. She was there with her child as well. And so you have women in the house, you have another male. So he was antagonizing them. He came over essentially banging on the door. He was asking for help. He was pretending that he was not himself. No one answered the door because things have gotten so bad. In fact, their stepmother, Miss Nikita Bruce, was on the call, one of our victims. She actually installed interior cameras, so the incident is captured on video. And so what we can see from the video is that he was banging on the door. At some point in time, they kept telling him to get away. He would not go away. So in front of the actual incident of the video, there is Ms. Nadja Freeman. There is the decedent victim, Tamika Pullins, who was directly in front of the window. There is the victim, Miss Little Dior Scott. She was sitting on a sofa watching her iPad. And then also in the room at the time of the actual shooting was a 1-year-old baby who was on the side, who also did not get shot, but thankfully, by the grace of God. So he came over, antagonized him. He went from window to window. They told him to leave. And eventually he just punched his way into the glass of the window, shot through, cutting himself in the arm, shooting Miss Pullins shot her one time in the chest and her body just drops. He then shoots our small Lodira Scott victim, the child, one time in the forehead, and she dies. Both of these victims were unable to be resuscitated by emergency personnel, and they were deceased on scene. As Your Honor can imagine, this was a very, very emotional scene, but the adults who were present and even the children who were present were able to give recounts of what happened. The police go to the scene. There is obviously that cut glass that I mentioned from the front window. There's a trail of blood, which we now believe to be the defendant's trail of blood leaving the residence. There's also a shell casing in the front of the area where the glass would have been. There's also a cell phone that was dropped. And there's also some other miscellaneous evidence, but those are the things that primarily the police were looking at. The police responded in major force. They deployed the K-9s out as well. And while they were searching for the scent for the defendant, the family was speaking to the police, and also they were clearing the residence. The police did clear the residence and found 4 of the children hiding and huddled up inside of the closet. The eldest was a teenage girl. I won't say her name, but she was very distressed. She mentioned how she had to protect the children, and she said that my auntie's husband, Bill came and shot them. He came to the window. I was sitting at the bed. I saw him at the window. He was right there, and then he dipped, and I heard fire shots. And this particular account was of the 14-year-old. As I said, there is video, and each of the other adults gave similar accounts as well. Obviously, they know the background of the prior abuse as well. But each of these victims, Jasmine Pullins, Naja Freeman, as well as Marquise Honeycutt, the 3 living surviving victims, gave very similar accounts of how he came, he antagonized, and eventually shot through the window. This is not the first time, but this is the most fatal time. Miss Freeman in particular is both a surviving victim and she's a next of kin of our baby, Dior Scott, our decedent victim. So as the police were conducting their investigation on scene, taking statements and processing the scene, K-9 is deployed. They go to a scent. Their scent is lost at a gas station, but they are able to pull a surveillance camera. They track down the vehicle that the defendant is seen going into. The vehicle is put on flock. The vehicle is pulled over. There's 2 occupants of the vehicle. They speak to those occupants and determine that the defendant had actually made up a story, got into the car, had his arm already wrapped up, claiming that he got into some type of fight and maybe hopped the fence and bled himself. But after speaking with them, it's very obvious that he basically hitched a ride back to his apartment complex. The police ultimately they recover the defendant, they arrest him after a foot chase with SWAT officers, with numerous police officers. He had to be taken down. He acted like he didn't know what was happening. And he was taken down to the station after being treated from Grady for his injury to his arm, the bleeding. And he essentially, without going into all the details, Judge, because most of it is just not credible, we already kind of know from the evidence, but he essentially said that someone else may have cut him and that he don't know how that happened. And he went over there for some marijuana to deliver marijuana, and that he loved his wife and he wouldn't do this. And eventually that devolved into maybe someone else did this, maybe some other male. While he also used that opportunity to call the victim and the women in the house derogatory names and said that they must have been sleeping with some other mystery men who may have done this. It is quite apparent, Judge, that the defendant expressed no contrition, no remorse for what he had done. And he was lodged into the jail on all 3 cases. Subsequent to the incident, Your Honor, the police department did take out that other warrant, the state court transfer that I mentioned to you. And that is also an aggravated assault. We will be upgrading those charges as well. So, Your Honor, I won't go into the other 3 incidents this year, but they are very similar. They just don't have any warrants associated with them. Regarding his criminal history, Judge, this defendant is a convicted felon 5 times over. He has 21 GCIC cycles. I will cover the felony convictions, Judge. In 1995, he had a VGCSA conviction out of DeKalb County. He was convicted here. He has had a subsequent probation and parole violations for that. He then had a conviction in 1997 for burglary, aggravated assault out of DeKalb County. He was convicted here for multiple counts of aggravated assault, obstruction, and governmental property. He was convicted and went to prison for 10 years to serve 5 years. After that, Judge, he was convicted in 2003 for entering an automobile, possession of tools for commission of crime, and marijuana out of DeKalb County in 2004. In 2006, he was convicted out of Fulton County for trafficking a controlled substance, obstruction, fleeing, intimidating to elude. Multiple probation violations there as well. Then, Your Honor, he had a 2008 felony out of Richmond County for procuring inmates prohibited items. That was a felony conviction in 2009. Then, Judge, he has a 2013 conviction for simple battery, disorderly conduct that was pled down from battery, family violence, different victim, Judge. And then he had some parole violations in between. And then, of course, we know that he was most recently arrested on these charges here in DeKalb County on the same day of the murder, June 13th of 2025. And so he is someone in terms of the IALA factors, Judge, and he is inherently a flight risk. He leaves every single time after the incident. He led the police in SWAT on a like on a foot race throughout buildings. He crashed into someone's apartment. All this to go 5 miles away from the incident location when he was recovered that night. But I would also mention to you that the prior times in which he did call the police, I mean, the victims did call the police, he would call them directly after and say, "I'm watching you call the police." He knew when she was calling the police. There's a high risk here, as well as the fact that he is known to not follow the court's orders with his probation violations, parole violations. Additionally, Your Honor, danger to property and persons, he terrorizes family, this community. We do not trust that he will be out, and there's no bond condition that can actually prevent that. The risk to intimidate witnesses, I think, is the biggest thing here. We've spoken to the victims and his family, and there is great threat that this might actually, if he is released, Your Honor, that he may actually kill them, as he has also expressed that he would threaten them as well. The risk is so dire and so dangerous that I cannot stress it enough, Your Honor. And then, of course, risk to reoffend. He knew, I watched his body cam, he knew that he had active warrants. He chose to abscond each time. And when he was arrested, even, he said, "I know I have active warrants." He knows. Additionally, Your Honor, and I'm gonna ask the court if Your Honor would have the victim speak, please. But I want to mention in terms of the last thing I'll say is the victim had a surviving daughter. She's 13 years old, not his biological child, but he does reference her quite a bit. It is also incumbent upon me to tell Your Honor that the state wishes to have him nowhere near her or this family at all, but especially because she was someone that was in his home because they were married. Additionally, Judge, I will make mention that I expect Mr. Mack to say that the defendant has some type of medical issues, including a colostomy bag. He did all this with the colostomy bag. He was taken down with the colostomy bag. He was interviewed with the colostomy bag. He did all these crimes with the bag on him. That particular medical issue can be addressed at the jail, but that didn't prevent him from committing all these crimes. And with that, Your Honor, I'll yield back to the court, and if Your Honor would allow the victims to speak in this case.
Okay, I will hear from them at this time, and then I will hear from the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I first ask Mr. Timothy Pullins to open your camera, sir? Good morning, sir, Mr. Pullins.
Good morning.
Can you raise your right hand for me? You solemnly swear or affirm that you would tell the truth and the whole truth in this matter?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Pullins, if you would just address the court as it pertains to the bond and your position on bond only and not any facts of the case. Thank you.
Bond situation. I'm scared for my daughters, my grandkids, due to the fact that he have stated on numerous occasions that he would kill everybody. He has no remorse. So I'm scared for my daughters and for my family, for Miss Bruce, that he's stays in jail, no bond. Because if he gets out, if you grant him bond, everybody have to move. Because he know where they stay at. Due to that fact, no bond. My daughter's not here because of him, due to the situation, the threats and everything. Please, no bond. No bond.
Thank you, Mr. Pullins. Your Honor,
Mr. Mack, I'll have to give him an opportunity to ask any questions.
yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mack, any questions?
No, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Pullins.
Okay,
Hey,
thank
how
you.
are you?
Thank you, Your Honor. May I ask next, Ms. Nadia Freeman? She is both a victim, surviving victim, as well as the next of kin of little D or Scott. Ms. Freeman, are you there? May I stop for her? I thought I just saw her. Ms. Friedman? All right, well, Your Honor, while we're waiting for Ms. Friedman to pull up, may I ask if, okay, may I ask if Ms. Nikita Bruce would be able to open your camera?
And Nikita Bruce.
Thank you. Ms. Bruce, can you raise your right hand for me? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you give today at this time is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, ma'am. Would you also please provide the court with your position on bond?
Because of all the threats that he done said, I don't think he needs to get bond. My household is filled with peace. He can't interrupt it. And if he do gets out, he already gonna come back and finish the job. Yes, we are in fear. Yes, we get scared when people knock on our door and ring our bell. But at this point, he shouldn't get no bonds at all.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Mack?
No, Your Honor, I don't.
And Ms. Finney?
Yes, Your Honor. Can we next go to Ms. Jasmine Pullins, who is a surviving victim as well as a victim in other cases as well with this defendant?
Mhm.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. Can you please raise your right hand, Ms. Pullins? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this matter?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Would you mind please addressing the court in terms of bond?
I just think he is a threat to society. It was a lot of trauma given, long life pain. And I don't feel like he deserved it. And I want anything that could serve justice for my sister and my niece. And he just don't deserve it. He took away beautiful people that did nothing but want him to leave us alone. So, that's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any questions, Mr. Mack?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Finney?
And Your Honor, last but not least, Ms. Nadia Freeman. I've received the message that she can't speak, and I'm trying to ask if it's too much, considering everything we've addressed today at this point. I've not received the message yet, but she is here, but I know her position is no bond, absolutely. But I have Ms. Rainwater. Ms. Rainwater?
Miss Finney, I think Miss Fremont is having a hard time emotionally right now, and she's not able to speak.
Understood. And so the state's position, and I can relay her position, she absolutely wants no bond. This is more trauma than anyone can handle. So at this time, Your Honor, I'd actually deny their motion. Obviously, there's no amount of bond and there are no conditions that you can ever enable someone like this to actually abide by. There's true terror in this family and definitely a risk, and he checks all 4 Ayala factors. Thank you, Judge.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Allman is 47 years of age. He does have family here in the area. He can leave the DeKalb County area. We would be fine with banishment from DeKalb County as a condition to bond. He is lifelong resident of Georgia in the metro Atlanta area. But as I had spoken before, we are fine with banishment with an ankle monitor to any county Your Honor would be inclined to basically send him if necessary. He is on disability, Judge. He does have Crohn's disease, and as Ms. Finney did mention, he does have a colostomy bag. When I met with him on Saturday after his arrest, he hadn't been receiving medical care, and it was either torn. It was leaking profusely during our interview, and it was they weren't ready to treat him, or intentionally not treating him, Judge, until later. He is on the medical floor where he is receiving treatment now, but I just wanted to point that out, that he is suffering from that, Judge. He was also doing mobile detailing. Your Honor, I'm not going to comment on the facts of the case at this point. It's still an investigation with our office as well. So I think it would be premature if I really spoke about the case, other than he's denying all allegations at this point, Judge. Your Honor, we are requesting a bond, as I said, at $200,000 with an ankle monitor, banishment from the county. And he will have that ankle monitor to ensure that he is not in DeKalb County. But that's our request.
Okay, thank you. Based on all of the information provided to the court this morning, I am going to deny bond for Defendant Almond on the grounds that he is a flight risk. There is a risk of his committing other crimes if released. There is a risk of his intimidating witnesses, and he poses a significant threat to persons and property in the community. Bond denied.
Thank you, Judge. May I be excused?
Yes, you may be excused.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you or someone you care about is experiencing domestic violence, there are many resources available to help you and help you learn how to break free. You can start right here, right now, with the National Domestic Violence Hotline.